I took a break. There were no check-ins, no reruns, figuring things out. And here I am, early lenses with Dr. Lillian. I wanted to have this conversation. A lot of people have been talking about this, and it might be something that we haven't quite considered yet. Dr. Tosin Ajayi, prominent physician, founder of First Foundation Hospital in Lagos. Now, Dr. Tosin Ajayi was statutory married to Mrs. Adenike Ajayi, and they had children together. And somewhere along the line, it was like the marriage ended. But apparently only on paper. Dr. Ajayi decided to move on with his life. He left the house, and about 10 years after he left the house, he decided to build a new life with somebody else, and that was Helen Prest. Helen Prest Davis. Helen Prest. Helen Prest had been Miss Nigeria at one time. She's from the prestigious Prest family, Shakiri family. She's a lawyer. She had married Mr. Davis, and they had two daughters together, and that didn't work. So Helen was available. And Dr. Jai and Helen got together and they built a life together. They had children together, right? There's one surviving daughter between them now. And for all practical purposes, cultural, social, they were a couple. She was Helen Prestajayi, did everything together and built a life together. And then come April 2020, Dr. Jai died. And things began to unravel. First, the funeral. It was an issue about, who could participate, what would Helen's participation be or not be. And then there was a case, they went to court. He wasn't buried immediately because the case was in court. And they resolved that and were eventually able to bury him. But then there's another case about asset and estate. And that case just concluded, at least the first phase of it, just concluded recently at the Lagos High Court. There was a ruling in June, and the judge ruled that Mrs. Adenike Ajayi was the sole surviving widow of Dr. Ajayi. This was a legal ruling, of course, it's the court, right? And so it's sort of like three core things. The judge said a lot of things, but three core things to look out here. Um, the court said that because they were statutorily married, prolonged separation doesn't terminate a statutory marriage. You have to have formal divorce proceedings. And since there were no formal divorce proceedings, they're like, let's just, no, we're not divorced. They're still married. Then there was Helen who said that they had been a Calabari customary marriage, but the judge was like, I don't see the evidence here. And then remember that first court case that they had gone to be able to bury Dr. Jai? Well, it seemed like at different times Helen had referred to herself as a common law partner, as a civil partner. So the judge was like, wait, which is it? Is this a customary wedding? Is it a civil law? Is it a, common law? There's just so many moving pieces here. And then aside from that, the judge said, that this was what the court ruled, right? That at the time that Helen was saying that they had this Calabari customary wedding, Helen was still married to Mr. Davis. And it's like, that's not how this works. I've seen some divorce papers circulating that Helen had in fact been divorced from Mr. Davies at that time, but that's what the ruling said. Ruling said there was no formal divorce, there's no like wedding, and then Helen was married to somebody else. So that was the crux of the matter. Decisions have been on both sides of the fence, or reactions have been on both sides of the fence. There are people who were like, oh, Mrs. Odenike was there from the beginning. She helped Dr. Tosin build up his empire. She's really like totally entitled to be there and be the Mrs. Ajayi, you know. And then folks were like, you sounds Helen right, you know. She's like, she's a lawyer. How could she have been in a relationship for so long without any legal protection? And then some people are like, wait a minute, 25 years is not a fortnight. You know, that's a long time. Doesn't that count for anything? The truth, though, is that the judge did what the law said that they could do. And here is my question. Is the law always right? Must we always accept what the law says? I mean, we can't question the law in the moment, but can laws be changed? Should laws be changed? So I wanted to look at a situation that's happened out here in Maryland in the US where I live. A long time ago, just imagine this scenario, right? A female person gets raped by a man and decides to keep the pregnancy. The rapist was entitled to co-parent the child with their victim by law. The law permitted it. And this was going on until some advocates said, what in the world is going on? This makes zero sense. So in 2007, advocates got together and they proposed the first bill that said, you know, we need to terminate parental rights for rapists. The bill didn't pass that year. And then they tried again and again and again and again and again. Finally, in 2018, 11 years later, and after they presented 9 bills to the House, Governor Larry Hogan finally signed the Rape Survivor Family Protection Act, terminating parental rights for rapists. And he said, you know, something to the effect that, look, rapists shouldn't be allowed to retain their parental rights, and victims should not be forced, because it was the law, you know, they were being forced. Victims should not be forced to interact with their attacker. So this was a case of what was permissible by law, but wasn't in the best interest of people. In fact, it was hurting more than it was helping. I mean, it wasn't just that it was just a bad thing, it was really hurting people. So you have to look at this and think and say, should prolonged separation have an impact on marriage in the Nigerian law? When a marriage has practically ended, should there be a mechanism for the court, the law, to recognize that this marriage has ended without requiring that there be a formal divorce filing, which may not have happened for whatever reason? Where things stand now with the case with Dr. Ajayi is that Helen has appealed that decision. But regardless of the outcome of that appeal, I think the broader question is, you know, should prolonged separation count? When a marriage has ended in all practical purposes, should the law be forcing that relationship to be a thing? Just wanted to drop that to say, you know, that might be work for advocates to do. Advocates might need to buckle up their shoes and go out and say, hey, this is happening. This is what the law says, but should this be the position of the law? LA Lenses with Dr. Lillian. I hope to be with you another time. Thank you.